Today on Locked On Red Wings, Detroit signed Robert Hagg, what that means for the rest of the defensive core after the Mark Pysyk injury, as well as the Griffins and Detroit extending their affiliation agreement. And finally, in lieu of the Pistons bringing back their teal uniforms, what Red Wings uniforms do you want to see return?
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a podcast producer for WWJ News Radio, while Scotty is the host at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And Scotty, to lead things off with, just to dive right into it, I guess, the Detroit Red Wings the other night signed Robert Hagg, a left-handed defenseman, to an $800,000 one-year contract. And when this initially happened, I was like, why did they sign an extra defenseman? I mean, guess more competition, and competition for roster spots isn't necessarily a bad thing. But why? And then we found out why, 20 minutes, 30 minutes later? It was not that long after. Turns out Mark Pysyk had to have surgery to repair his Achilles tendon, and he's going to be out 4 to 6 months. And that sucks because I liked that Mark Pysyk signing. I think it was, not like a huge signing, obviously, but he was a good depth defenseman. We saw his metrics, he was a good defensive defenseman, at a third pairing role. And we're going to unfortunately lose that. And so they made the move to sign Robert Hagg. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say Robert Hagg some kind of big move, but it is still a signing, even at $800,000 a year. And he will serve as a depth piece for this roster.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, I can't imagine that the Red Wings were super in the dark about this whole thing, upon signing him. But we talked about this when we did the roster breakdown post free agency. We were like, when was the last time a team was ever 100% healthy? Never.
Yeah.
So they have too many of whatever group you want to point to. Oh, that they're really deep this year. Yeah, they're deep until they're not. That's how depth works, right? You're deep until you're not deep. You're deep until 3 injuries happen. So, not that this is some catastrophic blow or anything, but I agree with you. I liked the move, and it definitely is. You'd rather it didn't happen, but here we are, and they got another lefty D-man, which is what the team's been going after for a while now, and he's a Swede, so pretty on brand there. Still in his late 20s, mid-late 20s. I think he's 27, 28.
Yeah, should be 27 right now.
Not, fine depth signing for sure. Not going to have a huge role if everything goes according to plan, and can definitely fill that void for 4 to 6 months.
Yeah, he's not. I'm not gonna look at this and overthink it. 11th percentile goals above replacement as overall, and then not good offensively or defensively. But I'm not gonna be too worried about this kind of signing. He's a depth piece. I'm not gonna look at these stats and be, oh no, what are they doing? It was 1 year, $800,000. It was a depth piece. So he's
not even a guarantee to get dressed every night. Yeah, make the roster period, or be dressed on a night-to-night basis when the season comes around. So
I mean, because he did play his distribution of minutes, according to what I've seen, was pretty well spread out this last season between all 3 pairs, but he also played 48 games with the Buffalo Sabres, which would explain why maybe he's in an increased role he wouldn't normally be in.
Yeah, his minutes, he went from average 17 minutes a night in Buffalo to 13 when he went to Florida.
There you go.
So that's, almost a 5-minute drop there.
It's kind of crazy that this takes me back to the conversation we had regarding, Kubalik, about how the fact that they're coming to a better roster, so they're going to be put in less pressure situations. It's the same way with Hagg here. I would not have said this before free agency, but they've improved their defensive core so much since free agency has began. I don't expect him to have to be forced into a role like Australia and DeKaiser were, playing top pair minutes. So, he might have a little bit of success in the third pair if he makes the team, but there's not a lot to break down here. There really isn't. I mean, the real story here is like, when did Mark Pysyk get injured? Because
Right.
I highly doubt that the Red Wings would sign Mark Pysyk knowing he's going to miss half the season on his 1-year contract due to an Achilles tendon tear. It
Yeah.
feels like something that had to have been recent.
Right. So that's what I said. What I was trying to allude to earlier is like I have a hard time believing that they were just in the dark on it. If it happened beforehand, it was either they knew about it and said, we don't care. We're still willing to try this out for when you get back, or it happened post signing, or like they realized how big of a deal it was post signing. I have a hard time believing that this happened before they signed it and the Red Wings were in the dark about it.
Yeah, and like, no offense to Mark Pysyk, but he's not the type of player you sign regardless of an injury, just because he's not going to be as big of an impact player as your Moritz Seiders or your Lucas Raymonds or Dylan Larkins. Like, if those guys are in the free agent market, yeah, maybe then you sign him despite the injury because you're banking on the fact they come back, they're going to come back just as good. But Mark Pysyk isn't that caliber of player, so it had to have happened recently. But again, that's just speculation. We don't actually know. All we got was a tweet saying he'd be out 4 to 6 months with an Achilles repair. But as far as Robert Hagg goes, I mean, can you realistically see him slot into the lineup, maybe on that third pair? Or do you think he gets, pushed into a healthy scratch type of role?
I think he's probably a seventh D man if everything else besides Pysyk is healthy. Like I think that's probably the role that they signed him to fill, and that's probably the role he will fill. I think whatever distribution they want to give him as far as when he's healthy and when he's not, but I would imagine that he will be, because we've talked about a lot, that third pairing on the blue line. There is one of the two there is kind of up for grabs a little bit. Both of them are a little wishy-washy, but especially one of them is kind of up for grabs there. And so he could just be part of the rotation. It could just be a kind of a rotating thing, and he'll just be part of the rotation.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. I mean, you look at who's ahead of him. This is a player that I think Jordan Osterley would outcompete for a roster spot. And, this isn't, I'm not trying to slander Robert Hagg, but I'm just trying to get across that it's just a depth signing. He's a seventh D man because injuries happen. Injuries just happen, which is why he got signed. So he's there if somebody else gets hurt. So it's going to be, left defense is, I won't call it deep, but you got Ben Sherratt, you got Oli Mata,
you got a lot of bodies,
that's for sure. And then when Jake Wallman comes back, he'll be another left defenseman you can slot in there at third pair. Probably will get minutes over Osterley. So whenever he happens to come back, but I mean that's just the state it is in right now. So I won't call it I don't know about the quality, but there's a lot of quantity of defensemen right now.
For sure.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today, or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Let's transition now to talking about the fact that the Red Wings and the Grand Rapids Griffins extended their affiliation for another 5 years. And, when this news broke, I just kind of went, yeah, no duh. Because the affiliation between these two organizations has been, the epitome of what AHL, NHL pipeline should look like.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it wasn't a shock to anybody, but it's nice to see still. It's a nice notification to get in the middle of your day, but definitely not anything shocking. That's the direct affiliation relationship is fascinating to me in sports, and that's one of the reasons I'm so fascinated with baseball, and the NBA is slowly trying to get there as well, where they have a direct affiliate in the G League, and it's just a fascinating concept, and like I said, the relationship between the two teams can be fascinating at times, and when you look at any sport besides baseball, when you look at direct affiliation, you're not going to find too many more noteworthy or healthy, I guess, relationships between an affiliated team and their parent team than the Griffins and the Wings, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you just think about their affiliation began in 2002. At the end of this 5-year extension, it's going to be 25 years of these two teams. And these
that
two
means this year's
working
20,
together.
yeah? Math?
And, yeah, 20. Yeah, good job.
Look at
He's a writer, but he's also a mathematician.
Hardly.
But my point here being is and a part of the reason why the Griffins are so successful is because they're very hands-on with the Griffins. I mean, the assistant general manager of the Detroit Red Wings is the general manager of the Grand Rapids Griffins, Sean Horkoff. And the the Detroit Red Wings, I mean, just looking at the NHL.com article about it, Detroit is also responsible for providing Grand Rapids with its playing roster through NHL contracted players and AHL only contracts, and also supplies its coaching staff, equipment managers, and athletic trainers. So the Griffins are not just with players, but supplied through staffing all up and down by the Detroit Red Wings, which is a really, really good thing to have if you're trying to keep that connection tight and really help the development. Like, you're very hands-on with in the development of the players when you do it this way. And we've seen it in this last season. All 9 members of the Red Wings opening night roster were former Griffins players. Bertuzzi, Larkin, Rasmussen. In all nine members, not all 9 members. Bertuzzi, Larkin, Rasmussen, Smith, Zadina, DeKaiser, Hronik, Lindstrom, and Moritz Seider all spent time in Grand Rapids. Some less time than others. Larkin and Seider, for instance, didn't spend much time in Grand Rapids whatsoever. But a lot of these guys came from that Grand Rapids pipeline, and a lot of players over the years have come from the Grand Rapids pipeline, and this just proves how important not just having a successful AHL hockey team is, because they weren't very good this past year. They didn't make the playoffs, but just being hands-on in the development of the players is for your own organization, and also just the proximity. Not every NHL team is as close to their AHL farm team as the Detroit Red Wings. It's a 3-hour drive, and that sounds like a lot, but it's really not in terms of what some of these other teams have to go through. Some of these teams' AHL affiliates are halfway across the country. So you can get Joe Veleno. We saw it this past year, Scotty. Joe Veleno got his call up and then just drove with Steve Yzerman, I think, albeit to Toronto. But my point still stands. Like, that proximity is important, that Joe Veleno hitched a ride with the general manager. They came to Detroit and drove to Toronto. Like,
one of the funnier storylines of the year.
Yeah, can you imagine that? Just
I remember when that story broke, and that was like the talk of Twitter for a couple of days. Just like all the theories about like conversations they had and stuff.
Yeah, just like I really want to know what Yzerman is like, just like with the general manager. Like, I mean, they always say general managers are always working, but I just really want to see, like, when he's not working, what he's like. Is he always working when he's talking to fellow players, like even like Joe Veleno? Is he in general manager mode then too, or is he more like, telling stories about when he played and like then kind of mixing in some advice?
I don't get the vibe that Steve Yzerman talks about his playing career very often.
He seems very humble.
I do not get that impression.
He's not one of the old boys club that you might see on certain broadcasts.
I just I don't see him as a dude that's like I don't know what to talk about, so I'm just going to talk about how great I was at hockey. Like, I don't see him as a guy who talks about his playing career very often. But back to the affiliation between the two. There is, like you said, there is such a key part of development is how you treat your affiliated team or teams, and providing our affiliated team so much resources and providing our affiliated team with personnel and everything, like that's the goal. And we see time and time again that, everybody loves to talk about draft position, and you want the best draft position. And obviously if you go, and you get the number 1 overall pick, you're supposed to be getting the best player in the draft. But we see countless examples and evidence that how you treat your, like, quote unquote minor league affiliates is significantly, like, almost more important to development than just like where you pick in the draft every year. Like, there's so many key developmental like spots along the way between when you're drafted to when you're in the NHL. We see it time and time again. There's providing that team resources and good coaches and good personnel, like you said. That's very, very important. And so, keeping them around and maintaining that relationship is obviously great, just because it's the norm and everyone's used to it, and that's awesome. But also, like, the Red Wings have put a lot of time and money into the Grand Rapids Griffins over the last 20 years. And so that's another reason why I'm sure that there was never a doubt that they were going to not extend them for as long as they felt comfortable doing.
Completely agree. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more fun, a little bit more, what do they call those? Evergreen segments. We're going to come back and ask you guys what Red Wings uniforms you would like to see return as an alternate jersey. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, the Detroit Pistons on Monday announced that they were bringing back the teal. And, that was leaked months ago, but it officially got announced. First of all, how do you feel about that?
I am absolutely ecstatic. I have never been in my life. I have never been more excited about a piece of merchandise from any of these 4 teams. I'm a Michigan fan. You throw Michigan in there, and there's not a single merchandise sale or article of clothing or jersey or whatever for any team that I root for, any team in this state, that I've been more excited about than the teal Piston jerseys. I am absolutely ecstatic.
It's really funny because, and I don't want to get too far into it because we are Locked On Red Wings, but it's such a mixed reception. And what I'm noticing is fans who watched that era of basketball
Correct.
are so vehemently against it, because that era outside of Grant Hill and
Stackhouse, yeah, that
were hot garbage. And I get that, but you got to separate that.
Also, okay, so you don't wear a Pistons jersey for the last 15 years then? Because we've also been hot garbage for 15 years, okay? So you're not going to wear any jersey we've worn since 2008? Is that the plan? No, it's not, obviously. All right, let's grow up.
Also, I just feel like red, white, and blue is such an overplayed color scheme in all of professional sports, especially with a team like the Pistons who have no, connection to the red, white, and blue. Like, it makes sense for teams like the Rangers, both Texas and New York. It makes sense for, the Patriots. It makes sense for teams that are themed like that, the Blue Jackets, because that's Civil War based. So it makes sense when those teams have red, white, and blue, but the Pistons, I don't see it, and it's just so overplayed. I was so pumped that they're bringing back the teal because I love them, and it's perfect timing. I know it's just an alternate one for 10 games, but it's perfect timing because it allows for a new era to define what those jerseys mean.
For sure, and I think that there's a rule where I think it's only going to be a this year thing. I think that's like the rule
it's just one of those new alternates that they do. Nicky does every
year. And they can only have those alternates for a year, so it'll be a glorious 10 games.
That way they can make new jerseys next year and make more money.
Yeah, for sure. But they're going to make so much off the teals. They're going to make so much off the teals.
But anyways, back to the Detroit Red Wings. This inspired the thought. You had this thought. Credit to you. What Red Wings jerseys or classic looks, and there's not a lot as far as the Red Wings go because they've stayed pretty on track their entire existence.
This is going to be more just a conversation of us talking about if we liked or didn't like old Red Wings jerseys or not than it is which one do we want to bring back. I feel like it's just going to wind up talking about how good or bad we thought some of the jerseys they've worn in the past are.
Well, for instance, I do like I don't know how to quite explain it. Remember the small wing where it was a little bit disproportionate, not as clean? I like that look. And I think the colors were inverted on that one as well. It'd be kind of cool to bring that back as an alternate, but as far as the rest of the jersey, there's not much to change. It's still the standard.
For sure. Well, it's also important to note, I forgot which website ran the article and the results and the poll and everything, but the wing wheel got voted the best.
It was J-Fresh.
Yeah, okay. So it was the best logo in hockey, which, we have a fantastic logo. It has a ton of history behind it. We have great jerseys. Objectively, they're sweet. You know what I mean? This is more of just the alternates because the classic home and roads that we wear, 90% of the time are already so great.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I mean, I'm
How about
open to having a third. I'm not going to lie. I've actually been
sure.
pro third jersey because of the fact that you only wear them so much. Not like reverse retro style third, because
Yeah,
those
let's talk
reverse
about the
retros
reverse
last year,
retros. Those went
those
over well.
I never want to bring back because they
So you
were
know what's
neither reverse and they were neither retro. They were just a gray stripe where the red stripe would be on an away jersey.
So Nolan and I did an episode where I I'm trying to, I don't even remember if I was on the episode. I was either I know I was part of Locked On Wings, but it might have just been Nolan and Ethan, and I might not have even been like on that day or something. I don't even remember, but there was a segment at one point about like the best uses for the reverse retro jersey. And one of them was like cut them up and make paper mache. And one of them was like, like make a big scene and throw it in the dumpster outside of LCA. Like we got like really, really crazy with it. Definitely don't need the reverse retros back. The OG retros I like. Those ones are really nice, but the reverse retros I could do without for sure.
And so, like, that brings us to, another and different. A lot of the Red Wings alternate jerseys that they've worn have been more recent eras. The oldest of the more recent eras being the barbershop pull ones from the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah. I used to really not like those jerseys, but they have really grown on me over time. And I would love if they brought that back as a third jersey. I think that they look pretty dang sharp. Just not even as like a reverse retro, just leave them as is. Leave them just like that. I think the barbershop jerseys are really cool and unique look. And I've been wanting a Red Wings third jersey for a long time.
For sure. I think my favorite jersey of all time for the Wings is the Winter Classic.
Which one?
The Winter Classic that instead of the white, it was like cream.
Yes, you're talking about 2014. It's that jersey right there.
Yeah. Yes. Correct. Yes, that one right there. I think that is my favorite jersey in Red Wings history.
Yeah, that'd be my number 2 choice.
I do like the D on the classic, whatever one that one's called. I do like the variation of the Old English D. That's not really an Old English D. I kind of like that one too, but I think that one you got hanging back there is probably my favorite ever.
The barbershop jersey and the 2014 Winter Classic jerseys are definitely my 2 top favorites. Definitely, and they have more of a classic look. Even though they never wore the 2014 Winter Classic jersey, historically it's designed to look more retro, right? And I love that about it. It looks so clean. I've always loved it from the moment I saw it. Now, after that, you get into a little bit murky water because you're talking about then the 2009 Winter Classic against Chicago, where it was just the red stripe with the D on it, the Cougar D.
Yeah, and the D's like weird.
Yeah, well, it's the Cougar D, the one that the Cougars
right,
had.
Correct. Yeah,
and then in 2016, I believe it was, they played the Stadium Series against Colorado, and that one was the most out there. If you want to go out there for a third one,
I don't like the Stadium.
The sideways stripe with the sleek D.
It looks like the Dayton Flyers D. Like it does. Like it has like I don't know. I didn't. I appreciated the fact that they took a risk because we had yet to see like a huge risk on a Red Wings jersey before, but I was not a fan.
No, I wasn't a fan either. There's very little to work with, unfortunately, when it comes to the Detroit Red Wings as far as jerseys go. But I think my number 1 choice would be barbershop. Number 2 would be 2014 Winter Classic. 2013. The number 3 would be, actually, let me throw this in here. Number 3 would be the alumni jersey from 2014 or 2016. It was the same one as the 2009 jersey, but the colors were inverted. That one looked really good. And then after that, the white version. And then probably after that, Stadium Series. And way at the bottom is the reverse retro.
Okay, so your Stadium Series ahead of reverse retro.
Oh, absolutely. So at least, here's the thing. I may not have loved the Stadium Series jersey, but I will give it credit for trying.
Yeah, I agree.
The reverse retro did not even
to break a mold that had been, set for almost 100 years for sure. Yeah, the Winter Classic 2014 Winter Classic. That's my favorite Red Wings jersey of all time, I think. You didn't mention the camo.
What, the camo? Well, they just wear those for warm-ups. I don't think you can get away with that as an alternate for 10 games.
Yeah, I
Also,
don't think so either.
the Red Wings themselves did not like the reverse retros where they wore them for the minimum 2 games on back-to-back
Right.
game
And then they
sets.
did not wear them. Yeah.
Other teams that loved their reverse retros wore them multiple times, like more
Yeah.
than, I think there was a maximum of like 10 games or something like
Yeah,
that.
we
and they
wore
them
ours
multiple times.
exactly twice and then said, see ya.
Yeah. And we're like, okay, we got that out of the way. And they wore them on the road.
Yes.
They didn't even wear them at home.
Yeah. They had no, absolutely zero want or will to wear those, which, I mean, good thing.
They were not nice jerseys.
No, they were
Adidas didn't
not.
even try for one of the most historic organizations in hockey, an original 6 team, and they gave a white jersey with gray stripes.
With a gray, just randomly had a gray stripe on the elbow, and you're like, all right.
It's like someone went to Pirani's and got a practice jersey and then slapped the Wings logo, and they're like,
Yeah.
"We're good, we're good."
Not a fan.
Not great. All right, Scotty, you got any final thoughts, man?
We ball.
We ball. We'll be back with a new episode on Friday, as we're down to 3 episodes a week.
Correct.
Same time, same place. It's your team
Every day.
every day.
BetOnline.